Tonight's talk is based on, in fact, it's about quotations. I want to read some quotations, and then talk about what does it mean. Maybe we can have a discussion what you think it means. I know you won't say anything, it doesn't matter. St.Macarius of Egypt. He lived in pagan times. He was born in 300, so the emperor was pagan and persecution of Christians until Constantine in 313 declared Christianity a part of as bona fide religion. But so he must have grown up as a teenager in pagan society. And he lived 90 years, 300 to 390. I've chosen him because I had lots of themes that I've been thinking about. And this is from a homily, number 5. So you can find it online to read yourself. And I read it several times. I've read it before, and I even maybe I've talked about it, mentioned it, but not in the same way as tonight. Because some things, like when you read a spiritual book, apart from the gospel, it seems to be new. Even if you've read it before, you suddenly say, well, I didn't see that before. That's normal. That's a part of our spiritual growth, if you like, that we become more aware of spiritual things. Then we see things that we didn't see before. There's no magic in it. It's the way it works, because the intensity of the spiritual life. There are 2 words that he used and which attracted my attention. The first one, he talks about captive, people being captive, and then he talks about people being possessed. And immediately one would think that these are the same, they mean the same things, they're both very bad. No, they're not. Let me read the first quote. And he's writing for 4th century Christians, but he could be giving a sermon today and we would understand. The great difference between Christians and the men of this world, 4th century, for the latter, imbued with spirit of this world, are in heart and mind held captive by earthly shackles. Christians, however, are possessed by a love of their Heavenly Father. They keep him alone before their eyes in all their desires. So the people of this world, the children of this world, are captive to the spirit of the age. We all know this. Look at this COVID thing. People are terrified. I'm not judging people because they're fearful, but I think it's an indication of how the spirit of this world is beginning to enter into our faith if we're not careful. When it comes to it, do we trust God? We believe in God, but do we trust God? Do we have a desire to think about God all the time? If we thought of God all the time in our lives, we would be different people. But no, how different are we from the children of this world? That's a question that you have to ask yourself. Am I different from people in the world? And I'm not talking about physical attributes, I'm talking about spiritual desire. What do you desire? Do you desire a successful career? Is that wrong? Well, let's have a look at it. Okay, or do you desire, to be popular, to have a great, good reputation? Is that what you desire? When we desire God, and it's a relationship with God, it's not some, force, a cosmic force, it's a person, Jesus Christ, then we can enjoy these other things, providing that it is based on our trust in God and our desire to be with Christ. We're going to be with him whether we like it or not. There's no escaping from that, and it could be a very wonderful experience, which I hope it will be, or it can be a very terrifying and depressing spirit. So how different are we from the children of this world? Are we totally tied up, captive to ambition, fear, worries? Or are we possessed by a love that doesn't care? Well, when I say doesn't care, because that's got wrong connotations for today, but we're not disturbed by the fact that things happen that we don't like. And so this COVID, I think, is a very good example. I think it's been good for us. I believe that actually for our church. It's helped us, I think, to close ranks and to realize that, tomorrow you may be in the heavenly kingdom. Are you prepared? Am I prepared? No. So we have to do something about it. Am I possessed with love of God, or am I captive to secular ambition, fear of reputation? True Christians belong to the heavenly kingdom. So we belong to the heavenly kingdom. We do not belong to this earth. We live here, we care for it, which is important, but we do not belong. But we behave often. Check your own life and what you do, whether you belong to this world. And I think, for most of us, we do. We don't want to. Maybe we can escape sometimes when we come to church for liturgy. Because in the liturgy, we are taken up into heaven. As St.Macarius says, it happens whether you like it or not. This is what happens. But do we experience something? And he refers to the Psalms 34. Taste and see how good the Lord is. Fusite, vidite, как благ Господь. I think that's a fair translation. Okay. Oh yes, 34. Google says 34, but it's on the Protestant calendar. That's okay. We're not worried about that. Oh, taste and see how good the Lord. What does it mean? What do you mean taste? How can you taste God?
Communion.
How?
Communion.
Communion, yes. Also the Spirit of God. Through prayer we have a taste. Father Fern used to say, you have to have a taste for prayer. You can recite lots of prayers, but if you don't have a taste for it, like a fine wine, if you don't have a taste for it, you miss something. Oh, taste and see how good the Lord is. So we need to taste God, not just Holy Communion, but in our thinking. Within your job or within your work, you dedicate what you're doing to God. That's what we do. Whatever you're doing, I'm not saying you shouldn't do certain things. That's not up for me to comment on, but everything we do should be to the glory of God. And so we should not be embarrassed or ashamed because what we're doing is not really, not spiritual enough. Okay, it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking. Are we different from the world, from worldly people who know nothing about God? Are we different? And I think it's a note here, I said, because we lack experience. It's very important that we experience God. Otherwise, our faith is philosophy. And maybe it's ethical, of course it's ethical, it's moral, and it's probably helpful to have a faith, but we have to experience God. And the closest thing we get to, the closest opportunity we have is through Holy Communion, of course. Ispoved, confession, Holy Communion. We get a taste of God. Does it stay? Very often it doesn't stay. It lasts for maybe a few minutes. And then in the liturgy we get distracted. So we have to train our minds to stay in the heart and to pray, however hard it is, and it's very difficult. Very difficult. You may imagine like children in a house where I lived. Actually, there was a little girl that was never allowed out to play with the children, and I thought that was terrible. But there's something wrong with her. She was ill. I didn't know that actually. She used to be watching through the window us playing playing outside, chasing and whatever you do. And I thought about that. She's not involved. What happens is that we end up looking in the liturgy, looking out the window because we want to see what's going on. Distracted. We get distracted, we bring ourselves back again. This is what we do. I'm sure you do it in your work. If you're working on something and you get distracted, you think, stop for a moment, and back again. And this is how we remember God, through prayer. Maybe it will last for a few seconds, but the more you practice, and this is prayer in the heart, not in the head. This is a bad place to be, in the mind. Leave that for, everyday life where you have to be logical. That's okay. But our real life should not be there. I mean, St. Paul was a tent maker. I'm sure he didn't leave school wanting to make tents. He had to do something. But he did it with prayer. Who wants to be a tent maker? And he was very highly educated, a very clever man, philosopher in his own right, and for the Jewish people. So in other words, that wasn't what he was here for. He was here to preach. And each one of us has a calling from God. There's no good saying, oh, as other people do that, I can't possibly do that. Let me go a little bit more onto that. Our world is different. Our world. Our style of he lists here, and I think this is, he could have written this yesterday. Style of living is different. Thinking, speech, all our actions. Our citizenship is in heaven. That's a quote from Philippians chapter 3. Our citizenship is in heaven. Not that piece of paper that we got when we came here. Not all of you, because you're born here. But I have a certificate of citizenship. But I do not belong here. I mean, I like being here. I love being here, actually. But it's not where I belong, and I don't belong in England either anymore. It has nothing there. Now I'm going to get in and sort of be personal, but I don't belong here. And do I feel sad because of that? No. I don't, actually. I feel rather relieved, as though something's been removed that's been holding me down, that I've got to have a reputation, I've got to appear to keep people happy. I'll come back to that in a minute. Our citizenship is in heaven, says the Holy Apostle Paul. We are centered on heavenly thoughts. That's how we live. We have heavenly thoughts. So everything we do, and when we get together tonight, this is obvious that we're here together, we're praying. So we're having heavenly thoughts. But, afterwards and tomorrow, let's keep heavenly thoughts. Think of what God wants you to do tomorrow. And it is a personal relationship. I'm sure you know that, actually. And it's not only, it's with the saints as well. I think St.Macarius is speaking. I feel that very strongly. Our world is different. Different style of living, thinking, speech, and all our actions. I've got a bird in here. Oh, good. And I want to... but he said also, St. Macarius says that there are many Christians believe the difference lies in some external sign. So they think that the difference between us and the world is that we go to church. We have icons. We think differently, but that is external. And he's saying, yes, there are Christians who are in outward form Christians, but inward form they fear. One of the things they fear is loss of reputation. What do people think of me? Who's going to think of me? Fear for that. So we're back into the world. The world is worried. It's ambition. I mean, you only have to look at the news or any popular themes that are going on, which today are very bizarre. And do we want to be different? There's a pull. I think it's a pull to say, no, I have to be the same as everybody else. I know it's wrong, but what can you do? You can resist through prayer, providing the prayer is in the heart and not in the mind. Okay, so what am I going to do? Do I not read prayers anymore? Because I didn't write them. No, you do, but you have to understand that those prayers have to become a part of you, not something you do. Communion prayers, difficult to bring them into the heart. And as an attitude, if we're not careful, we say all the prayers, and after we feel satisfied that we have done it. Okay, I've done my duty, now pay me. What sort of relationship is that with God? Christians believe that the difference lies in some external sign, but they have a fear for reputation, and they never begged God for heavenly peace of spirit in their hearts. So yeah, we have to pray for it. If we're worried about what's going on around us, we have to pray for God to enter into our hearts and give us the peace. When I give the blessing in church, peace be with you, what does it mean? It's not my peace, it's from God. It's a blessing. We need that. We can't survive without peace. It's impossible. And thank God that we have not been dragged into this COVID fear. I don't think we have. Well, you wouldn't be at church, would you, if you did? And I want to actually end here with a quote which is now more contemporary. 40 days after Pascha, there was an abbess, igumena, in Iași, I think, in Romania, who died, reposed, and she wrote a little sermon before she died. I don't know, she obviously knew she was going to die, I think. And her name is Mother Siluana. You can find it online. And I'm quote from her: "Have you seen people standing in line and crowding to ascend to heaven?" "No, I haven't either," she says. "I didn't see them either. Maybe when they distribute holy water, there are crowds. They even jostle against one another. But to ascend to heaven, nobody." That's like we're running out.
You just said you'd end with that quote.
No. Sit down. We're all human, you know. We're human. Maybe when they distribute holy water, so, you know, outside the church, the cathedrals, I don't know, in Romania, they're sprinkling holy water, people are jostling to get some holy water from them, which is good. I mean, that's a bad thing. But she said, but queuing up to get into heaven, no, I don't think so. It's as if, oh yeah, we often ask what to do to stop arguing, because we're having arguments about things. This is what we're concerned with. Shall I get married? What about taking my exams, she says, to be well, to be healthy. That's where concentration goes. This is not on the Spirit of God. This is on the spirit of one's self-being. We often ask what to do to stop arguing, to get married, to take my exams. The English is a little bit strange. To be well. But what to do to get to heaven? It's as if we were born to stay here on earth. That struck me as very poignant, very strong. It's as though we're here forever. The way we believe and behave, that we're here forever. I will pull down my barns and I will build greater. I'll get myself a new house and it'll be far more luxurious than the one I lived in before. That, thinking of that, okay, I'm not saying these things are wrong in themselves, but what is your motive? Oh, I know, it could be to investment, of course, that's a pretty good idea really, I suppose. Invest in real estate. What is this dissatisfaction with what I am? This applies to young people. It applied to me. Absolutely. What am I meant to be doing? What am I really meant to do in this world? Yeah? How many people have not been through that? Am I really doing what I'm meant to be doing? Well, what you're meant to be doing is getting ready for heaven. And the rest will fit into place. Mother Siluana was actually a professor of philosophy, I think at Iași University, before she became a nun. So she's an intellectual, a smart person. But she changed when she became a nun, because she started to pray and she began to think in different ways, spiritually instead of in a secular sense. What is this dissatisfaction with what am I? what am I? And she says, it is the voice of your longing for God, that you may feel, which you may feel at first like longing for yourself, but it isn't. It's longing for God. Hey, that's interesting. That's a revelation. Dissatisfied because I want God, and nothing's going to satisfy me. I think it is, temporary. Well, if I have some more money for something, then I'll be happy. Or if, career prospects. I get my PhD, I'm happy. No, because it's not complete. There is a longing for God, and that is why we are dissatisfied as Christians. I'm not talking about the secular world now. That's just a different world. It doesn't belong to us. That's somewhat alien. We have to live here, but that thinking is alien. Our thinking is preparing ourselves for heaven. At first, I was longing for myself. I said, "That's not me. I want myself," as I thought I should be. I wanted myself back, searching for me and searching for the meaning of my life. And I've been through all that, and I'm sure you have as well. I certainly found God, and then my longing woke up. It rose from the depths of my heart, was felt and formulated in words. Even if it is not formulated in words, it is felt. You feel it. And when you read St. Anthony the Great, St. Silouan the Athonite, when you read a saint from the Philokalia, St.Macarius of course, then something vibrates within you, something awakens in your depths. Sometimes even when you listen to a hymn in the church, the chanting, something leaps in you and you realize that it is that longing which is waking up. It's not negative, it's positive. A love for the church, a love for the service. We have beautiful service. We had a beautiful Pascha, no doubt about that. It was beautiful. Singing, atmosphere, everything. That's what I want personally. To me, that's heaven. So when I get to heaven, if I'm able to have spiritual eyes, I will see all you lot there. Just carry on. That'd be wonderful. Well, why would it be separate? Why would we be separated? Let's be positive. When you listen to a hymn in the church, something leaps in you and you realize that it is that longing which awakes. So it is that longing to reach our home, our place, to become who we are called to become. Not called to become something else. I'm not talking about professional, because there are professions, and it's a part of life, but it's not who we're called to be. Does that mean that we don't bother? No, we do bother. We have the gifts, and God's given people certain intelligence and gifts. They should use them, but use them to the glory of God. We like often to take a break from life. Stop the planet, I want to get off. You remember there was a film about that. I like to take a break from life. No, this longing, dissatisfaction is the fire, is the flame of life. It's the spiritual life inside us beginning to react. Because whether you like it or not, you have a soul. And whether you like it or not, your soul is created by God to be with God. And you'll never be satisfied. I remember saying some young people who were, thinking giving up church because it's for whatever reason. I said, well, you can, I said, but you'll never be satisfied. Why? I said, because you're Orthodox. I said, bad luck. You've got it in you. You're not going to be able to, you might be able to muffle it or hide it, become Prime Minister. You remember Archbishop Damascenus? And he's saying, his mother said to him, if you become a soldier, you have to be a general. If you become a politician, you've got to be president of Greece. You know what he did? Became a priest, which is the highest calling. You may remember that. Christ ascended to heaven with his body. He departed from among us so that he could abide in us. We tend to think of Christ and God on the outside somewhere, up in the sky. In fact, he's here inside and we don't see it. God is inside us because we are baptized. The Spirit is in us already. So why don't we make contact? What are we doing on the outside all day long? Worrying about outside external things when we've got Christ inside us already. And it should be very difficult just to call and arouse Christ. He abides in us. He abides in us from baptism, from Holy Communion. He is even in those who do not believe in him, because the image of God is there. But we are not there. We do not live there. We do not live that joy. When the mind becomes estranged from virtuous thoughts of God, thinking of God, it becomes demonic or bestial. That to me is shocking. If you don't think about God, then you're entering into a demonic world, which you know from experience.